Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, Hyphens Classics. So today we're going to talk about the tough bits of what happened on the engine build. There are a few things. So we'll start off, so this is going to be quite a quick video to be honest, but as I've said before, I'm happy to talk about things that I find challenging, because this is again about people who like to think they could try something, and I want to give you the warts and all so that you can hopefully decide whether you should be attempting these jobs yourself. So the first challenge I had was I was using someone else's space, and I'm so grateful for having that space. Obviously, kept me out of the rain and the cold, even had a heater in there, as you would have seen. But because I wasn't used to the space, I didn't use it effectively. So that was the first challenge. So I never got the car up properly on the ramp. I only ever had the front up. So there's some definite challenges there. The other thing that happened prior to all that, and it happened when I picked up the engine, but we'll talk about that right at the end. So after that, what was it? I was just working. I didn't have too much of a time limit. I did hope to do that in one day. I know professionals can take a car engine out. These ones are around about sort of between an hour and a half. Some people reckon they can do it faster, but hey, that's cool. I've seen a few people do it on videos, some mechanics and some people that work on minis all the time. Someone that does it in a rush when they know what they're doing because they're being timed and they've got everything ready, did it in just over an hour, I think, but that was just to get the engine out. So again, I sat there and thought, well, give myself 4 hours, maybe that'll be all right. But it did take longer. It took me nearly a day. It took me around about 6 hours, 6.5 hours to get it out. There were some stoppages and things on the way, but still, that's how long it took me to get it out. The other thing to think about is when you take something out a certain way, make sure you put it back in the same way. So I did end up with one spare part. It wasn't a bolt, it was a bracket for some of the cables. I'm not overly concerned about it. I did try to look to see if I put it back in, but it really did. I really would have had to have moved the engine back out of it to do that, and I just wasn't prepared at that point to do it. So putting the engine. And what I did, where it went wrong for me in that one was very much that I took the engine out thinking, do I, the number of questions you've got to ask yourself, do you just remove the headers off the engine, or do you undo it just past the cat and take the whole thing out? Do you take the wiring loom with you? Do you leave some of it in the car and just take it all off and leave it to one side? So I took the headers off at the engine, no big deal there. I was quite fortunate, all the bolts came out, no problem, easy peasy. Wiring loom, I decided to take with the engine, which is no problem, but where I fell over is when I went to put the engine back in, I didn't put the engine loom on first. I decided to put the engine in and then put this loom on. And so where I went wrong is there's a bracket that is bolted onto the engine and the top bolt of the starter motor, and that's the piece I have spare. I have arranged them, everything, tied them up so that they are all safely away anyway. They're not touching on anything, so they're all safe. But again, lesson learned. So when I swap the engine back out for either this one or mine, which is still down at the other garage, that's something that I'll be able to think about. Now, what else? It took me another day to get the engine back in, and I still didn't quite finish it. It was quite a long day, so I then had to come back another day to try and do the testing. So what you've just saw in the last video is literally about 2.5 days of my time doing that. I'm sure I'll get faster and better at it. Do I really need to? Probably not. But that was just to give you an idea of how that went. So the other thing, when it started, what I didn't show you at the end there is there was a slight problem. So there was an oil leak. Now, the problem was, and you will have noticed in the video at some point, I think I mentioned in one of the previous videos in this series, I mentioned and I showed you how the oil cooler pipe had a dent in it, and I mentioned how when I was trying to pick the engine up here, it rolled back slightly. I didn't quite balance it right, and it rolled back, and there was another engine from a Fiat sitting behind it, and it touched that. Now, when I saw the damage to the pipe, I thought, okay, well, that's not so bad. Turns out that there was more damage. So as you know, for those who've seen the oil filter housing, how it's got that lovely triangular type oil seal that goes onto the block, So it's got 3 bolts, and the bottom bolt, basically it was leaking out of there, and we had a look. I then had someone else looking. We cleaned it all up while I started the car, because you got to start the car and run down and have a look. It takes too long. And it wasn't the bolt. At first I thought maybe the seal had jumped out. It wasn't that. We took it off. Unfortunately, I didn't get any of this on film, but when that engine rolled back, it's cracked the housing. And so there was a fine crack from the bolt just up the housing on the side. There was a little crack in the housing. So I'm now in the market for a new housing, because that one's been cracked. Luckily, obviously, I had another engine there, my previous one, which we took that off, put the new gasket in, and put everything back, and we're all good. Everything's golden. The car's now running. And that's one thing I will do. Obviously, I'll now do a video of the car driving, and yeah, we'll go through those challenges. Certainly fun things to consider. The clutch, I thought I would be able to just push it in, hold the piston in, leave it to one side and then put it back. But probably because I had to lift it up over it, I imagine gravity, the fluids ran out slightly, so that had to be bled. It's still not perfect, but it's, it works. I need to have a look at that again. The second thing is, I think a lot of people talk about this, is making sure you bleed your coolant system properly. I went through all the process, thought everything was perfect, seemed to be running fine, then checked it about 4 or 5 days later, had a slight problem with it. So I went through the whole process again, and bled it again, and this time we're all good. So all those things to learn, fun times, but there you go. So again, I hope you enjoyed that video. This one, just a very quick one. Again, this is the warts all. This is what went wrong, and but hey, we're there now, and now we're on to the next thing. So hopefully in the next video, we've got a couple of things. I've got to go and get my other engine before we take that apart and dismantle that and have a look and see what the issues are with that. But I can guarantee you we know it's the oil seal on the filter, because I've already pulled that off and seen it. I know definitely the O-rings on the cooler are definitely gone. I've seen those already because I swapped those over. I guarantee, I know the timing chain's gone, or should I say the guide's been broken, so that's definitely up for replacement. I've got a new one already. The timing chain cover and the oil pump, all the seals around there, I guarantee they will have gone, so that will be done as well. We're going to obviously take that engine apart. I'm now considering that this engine here, when we get back to this in the next episode, we're going to take it apart, clean it up, and basically put it back together almost as is. And the question will be at the end of it is, do I keep it and use it for a project, or do I sell it? Now, question for all the viewers: if I was to sell this, how would if you were in the market to buy an engine, would you want something that's just been looked over, checked up, put back together, and sold, with all the bits replaced that need to be? Or would people be in the market for something that has actually been completely beefed up? Now, from all the things that I've read, the internals in these things are designed for forced induction, and it's typically you only have to do something when you are turbocharging the engine. Now, a lot of people will do them up anyway, so the question is, if I'm only just going to do it up and sell it as is, then there's probably no point in doing anything to it. But if then you do the full forged idea, then you've got an engine that's really looking good for the next 100,000, 200,000 miles, I guess. But I've also got to temper the fact that I'm probably going to do something like that to my engine. So if I did something like that to this engine, it would have to be sold, and it would have to be sold at the value of what it's worth for everything that goes into it. I don't have a lot of equipment for this, but I have met a guy who's very close to me who can do a lot of this work. So I'm hoping we can do a lot of work. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to make something really nice. So, question for you guys: is anyone interested in the engine just straight, just done up as it is? Anyone interested in a full-blown built engine? Obviously, you're going to be talking anywhere, I don't know sort of values at the moment, so I need to have a look at the numbers, but to get a fully built up engine that's forged and really ready to go, it's going to be a few grand. So let me know your thoughts, and let me know your thoughts on how my engine change happened and the challenges we had. On the next episode, what we'll do is we'll get the pistons out of this and then decide where we're going to go from there. Again, based on feedback, and if it is that someone would buy a fully prepped up engine, we'll have to consider that. Again, there's if someone does want one, then we'll have to maybe have a chat about that. Right, so that's the discussion of all of the bits that went wrong for my engine swap. Next, as I said, we'll be getting onto this engine, taking the rest of it apart. I also want it off the engine stand, so when I bring mine up, we'll put that on there and start checking that over. And yeah, but that's it for now. We'll see you in the next one where we finish up taking this thing apart. Take care for now. See you later.